Yo, what's up everybody? It's Sunday, and Sundays we do custom card reviews. I'm stoked. I love doing this. It's always fun engaging with you guys on your creative ideas. This last week we did discard as the keyword. So that's what this whole challenge was about for this video. And then next week, the challenge is going to be destroy, like you see right up here. It's kind of in honor of Null releasing this Tuesday, which I am saving every last bit of my tokens to get this new card. And it'll probably be one of the last new cards that I get for a while. So I'm pretty fired up about it. So try and think of some really creative ideas to use the destroy mechanic. There's already a lot of destroy cards in Marvel Snap, and maybe try to think of some that like synergize with Null or Death or some of these upcoming cards, and just get creative with it. It doesn't even have to really apply to benefiting with destroy, right? It could just have that keyword. As long as it has the keyword in it, it can do whatever you want. And as always, guys, if you want to submit a card, it's super easy and totally free and doesn't require anything. You don't even have to sub to the channel. You just join the Berryverse Discord, you create a card with the link there, and you post one submission. Please leave it at one submission in the hashtag weekly challenge channel, okay? And if you're looking for feedback on these cards, we have a custom cards chat channel where you can kind of post the initial idea of the card, and then everybody's going to bounce ideas off of it and help balance out the card if it needs balancing, or maybe like help out with the art. We have some people that are helping frame break some of the cards, so you can just do it there. And then there's no bad submissions, guys, okay? There's only good ones, so only positive feedback, please. It's been awesome. The community's growing. It's super fun to see, but let's get into this week's submissions. Honorable mentions time, and these are kind of some funny ones. These made me laugh, okay? So actually Fran's was really cool. So it's Kraglin, I believe that's how it's pronounced. I love how you did the text with his little laser, like Yondu's, I don't know what it is, but his pointer. And I know this character is from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He's kind of like the comedic relief sidekick to Yondu. Anyways, this is so cool. So you kept the theme of Yondu too. It's a 1/2 on reveal, discard a card from each player's deck. So Yondu destroys a card from your opponent's deck. This is going to have the Moon Knight effect, except from each deck, which I thought was pretty interesting. Maybe almost too good, because that's 2 discards. That's going to be +4 power for Morbius and some other synergistic things. But interesting to actually take cards out of the deck and discard them. It's almost like a cable effect. Like if you take a card, it gets discarded. Either way, your opponent doesn't get to play with it. And then you will have discard synergy, hopefully, on your end. I imagine even if this hit APOC from the deck, APOC would come back to your hand, maybe? I don't know. Pretty cool. But I just adored the art here in the text. Like this is 10 out of 10 on the thematic scale. So really well done. I like this one a lot, Fran. Thank you. And then we got Throg by username Shiddy with D's. Trying to catch me there, but draw 1 card for each card you discarded last turn. He's a 3-cost 0 power. This is a pretty cool card. The first thought I had with this was Mr. Negative. Like doing the flip, and then it's a 0/3 and you can draw some cards. But then I was like, oh shoot, but you're discarding. I don't know how much that would actually synergize with the Mr. Negative deck, because a lot of the discard cards have high power totals and low cost. They kind of like are offset by that, because discard's supposed to be a bad thing, even though it works out a lot of the time. So I don't know if a Mr. Negative deck would actually come together with Throg here. But overall, I just like the idea of benefiting from what you did last turn. So setting up your future turn play. Pretty cool. Probably should be an on reveal as well. So it's countered by Cosmo and something like that. But just really cool. And Throg has to come to the game at some point. He's got it. We're going to see the Frog in some fashion. They do variants, right? There's Jane Foster Thor. There's Thor. You could have Throg. Why not? Let's have a Throg. Okay, but the best meme one, oh my gosh, this made me burst out laughing. It's Wobbles, Forgetmenot. So I've seen Forgetmenot come up a lot, and people really love using this card for submissions, and why not? It's hilarious. But this one is a 0/2. When you draw this, discard it. It's so hilarious, because like obviously bad, obviously. Like I think the best value is that you buff your Morbius, like because you're not even thinning your deck. It takes up your draw. It's like Black Cat kind of, and you can't play her and she gets discarded, except she has like a really good power upside, and you can actually have the option to play her once you draw her. This is just like, nope, See you later. Totally forgettable. Didn't even know he was there. If I was looking at chat, I wouldn't even know to draw that card. Like, it would just be dead. So, oh my gosh, it's too funny. Like, obviously, maybe you can cheat this out with like Lockjaw, Jubilee, or whatever, but like, that's pretty brutal too. I don't know when you're ever trying to do that. So just hilarious submission. I wanted to include it because it made me laugh. All right, and a few more honorable mentions because I thought these were pretty cool. These are the ones that almost made the cut. Okay, so we have Nathaniel Bacon's Ares. So this is death, right? It's death, but discard. Does this apply? Should this be a card in the game? I think death is so unique to the destroy mechanic and like enables a lot of decks because you just heavily invest in that one keyword and then you get a benefit because you've discounted that card so much. Couldn't that take place for discard? Even like playing ongoing cards on reveal, if you played X amount of those cards, discount the card by this much, etc., etc. And then wave shenanigans. Like, I'm not saying this is good or bad for the game, but it's interesting to think about. So I just appreciated the thought of having a card that's very similar, but a discard variant or variation, I should say. So really cool idea, Nathaniel Bacon. Thank you for sharing that. Cool text on the card, character, all very good. Ares, very nice. And then we got Sunbird's Beetle. This one was so close to making the cut. I really love the idea here. It's a 1 cost 2 power, so nothing to write home about, but while in hand, adjacent cards cannot be discarded. Love the idea of discard protection. I think that's really unique and actually would help out a lot, like especially consistency for those Hella decks. And it's not just that your entire deck is protected, it's just adjacent cards, so you kind of have to play safe and know where your cards are in your hand, play them in a certain turn order maybe if you want to protect certain ones, so it actually influences your play. And then also, if this gets discarded, then they're not protected anymore. So if you Hellcat and the first card that gets discarded is Beetle, and then the second card is like Hella, well, you just got screwed. So I thought this was really cool. And I also imagine if they're protected, then it's not an option for the game to pick them for a discard. So then all of a sudden, if I have 5 cards in hand, 2 are protected, there's actually only a 1 in 3 chance of discarding maybe what I want, like an APOC or something, or unfortunately Beetle. But then maybe it's not so bad if Beetle takes the hit because it's just like a 1-2 and you never really planned on playing it anyways because it's in the hand. So it's kind of like, well, if it gets discarded, then it did its job. And if it protects the things I want to protect, then it did its job. So yeah, really cool card. This is like basically number 6. Well done, Sunbird. Very cool idea. And then I've got Pircival's Satana. She is a 4/5. When you discard a card, your opponent discards a card. So it's just kind of an easy way to just burn through your opponent's cards. But I think that might be a little bit too broken. Like if you play like Hellcat and a bunch of other things, like on turn 5, if you somehow can get multiple discards out, bam, you like eliminate your opponent's options for turn 6 and you're probably going to win the game pretty well. So maybe like a power reduction I was thinking, but still a cool concept of kind of having that simultaneous discard, forcing your opponent to maybe dump their hand, you know, or just like look out for a bunch of discards that are coming their way. If they have a discard deck themselves, then they get a lot of benefit from it, interestingly enough. So in the matchup, in the mirror matchup, it might not be a good idea to play this card, but still a pretty interesting concept. And Pircival also mentioned that if both players had a Satana on the field, that it would only loop 5 times and then stop, so that it's not infinite, because that would be insane. It'd just be a bunch of discards. But I don't know, probably until you like run out of your hand, but like capping it at 5 is pretty reasonable, so people still have cards possibly if you had a 6 or 7 card hand. So anyways, very nicely done. Thank you to all the honorable mentions. They're all fantastic. Again, guys, you guys are so creative. There was so many I had to filter through this. Like every week we're growing and there's more submissions. So it gets harder and harder every week. I end up with like 50, 20 that I have to then pick from. And then I only get like 5, plus these honorable mentions are clearly growing because now I have 6. Oh gosh, like I hope eventually the honorable mentions are gonna be like 20. But for now, we got these ones. Let's get into the top 5 plus my own submission. All right, let's start it off with mine. So this is Jackal. A 3 cost 4 power. On reveal, destroy each player's discard pile. Yeah, I got you, right? I was actually surprised when I was looking through all of the submissions that I didn't see anyone mention the discard pile. Maybe I missed it. I apologize if I missed it, but I didn't see anyone mention interaction with the discard pile itself. It's something that does exist. So I have it right up here. Whenever you're looking at like the little info tip on your opponent or yourself, you're going to see how many cards were discarded with the garbage bin, right? A few quick notes about this. Okay, so the discard pile, like there's a few cards that don't actually stick there. Like Apocalypse, you can discard him and he goes back to your hand, but he doesn't actually stay in the discard pile. so to speak. I don't know if he actually contributes to this number and continues the tally as if he was a discarded card, and then it just keeps going up from there. If you discard him 5 times, you'd see 5. I'm not too sure. Same with Swarm. You discard it, you get 2 copies back. I believe the original actually would stay in the pile, though. You get 2 copies. That's what the text says. So anyhow, keeping those in mind, what I wanted to do was somehow get an interaction of combining discard and destroy. So the way I envision it is this number up here would just, the discarded would convert to the destroy. And it's a cool way to maybe have like a death discount. So all of a sudden I've been discarding a bunch of cards, and then on turn 5 or 4 or whenever I want to play Jackal, boom, all of those cards I've been discarding start to contribute to my death discount. Or even better, null. Right? Null, who's coming out, he has ongoing, has the total power of all the cards that you've destroyed this game. Not even you, your opponent as well. Which makes for a great case for Moon Knight, because that would discard 2 cards, giving you 2 discards, because it's not just your discard pile, it's your opponent's. And then bam, those will end up discounting death, giving power to null. So like, you can tell I'm hyped about this card, and I really want it bad because I'm making cards for it. But I thought this would be a cool synergy, a cool way to interact with the discard pile. Yes, he is a 3/4, which is a Cyclops stat line, and everybody loves to say that you can't make a card that is a 3/4 or any of the vanilla stat lines, because then they're objectively better. But that's just not the case, because Patriot exists, and there's going to be future no ability synergies. So like Jackal wouldn't benefit from those, right? He might not even be that much of a benefit, like destroying each player's discard pile. If you're bringing a destroy deck, it's going to be hard to fit in enough discard options to make this work. Like really, like how many can I actually discard to make it worth it over something like Carnage or Deathlock, right? Who's a 3/5 and has destroy mechanics that actually benefit a lot of deck archetypes. So that's kind of was my thinking behind the stat line. Maybe it's too crazy with null. I could see that being an easy way to get a lot of power on null. But I think for death, it's just like a bit of a gimmicky way to discounter. And otherwise, I don't really know if you'd play this in any other decks, to be honest. But I just thought it'd be a cool idea to get the discard pile, a little bit of action, get into the game a little bit more. There is the destroy pile. That's a thing too. They're like the only trackable metrics in the game right now, at least for the UI in game. But we're not here for my submission. No, we are here for the top 5 winners. So let's get to them. Number 5. ANDy's Hellcat. All right, ANDy went through a few iterations of this card and came up with this. Hellcat is a 2/3. When this is discarded, put it back into your deck with +4 power. Crazy buff, right? +4, you never really see it in Marvel Snap. But probably warranted, because it's hard to get cards back out of your deck if you put them back in there, unless you're doing like a Lockjaw cycle. So I have that as a synergistic card. But even then, you kind of want to discard it maybe multiple times. I mean, if you do it once, that's great value. It then becomes a 2/7, which is awesome. And then it's in the deck, and maybe you Jubilee it out, or you Lockjaw cycle it back out, and then you got a 2/7, and that's good power value. But if you can get it twice, we're talking a 2/11. Now we're talking some real good power, some really good value. It's just there's not enough draw to consistently get this back out to your hand, discard it, and then kind of continue that cycle at the moment. It's probably pretty easy to discard. If it's your lowest cost card in your hand, then Clean Wing is a great option. You just don't run any 1-drops in this deck, and you're fine. Watch out for your 2-drops maybe, but otherwise you can pretty reliably discard this. But are you going to draw it again? And are you going to be able to play it again? I don't know, but this is such a reasonable card for that very reason that I think it's well balanced, and I could see it in the game. It just makes sense that it'd be in the game. It's very Wolverine-esque, you know, the 2/3, and he goes out if he gets discarded. This goes back to your deck and gets a little bit of extra power because it's not so good to go to the deck compared to the board, of course. Anyways, ANDy, I really like the submission. I thought it just makes sense for the current game and how it works right now. Thank you for submitting. Very creative and beautiful art. He also shouted out the artist, Youngju Kim. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was the artist for this card. If you ever want to shout out the artist, please just let me know. I know a lot of us just pull art from Google Images or anything like that. So I appreciate that note to give the tip of the hat to the artist. Fantastic job. Looks great. Very creative. Thank you. Number 4, Hexagon's Longshot. All right, this one really stood out to me because they made a full set of variants. How cool is that? And they're actually like different art styles as well, which is something that Marvel Snap does a lot, right? You know, like you got the kind of like comic book style, then the close-up face one. Oh, it's over there. Similar to like the Gambit. It reminds me of the Gambit variant. But very cool. I love this a lot. But the card itself is a 3-cost, 1 power. Can only be played on turn 3. That's a hyper condition. If I draw this after 3, dead card. If I draw it before 3, I gotta wait, and hopefully I can play it on 3. If my opponent doesn't do something, the locations don't screw me over, like I gotta play this on 3. So it better be worth it, right? Well, it is. On reveal, discard your hand. Okay, lots of synergy there. That's pretty good. And we actually see this in a card called Modok, who's actually data mined in the game and going to come soon. A lot of people put that same effect in their submissions, and I didn't pick it because Modok does exist. He's going to be a card. But this had a bit different twist on it. Next turn, draw cards equal to the number discarded. So it is essentially a mulligan that can benefit your deck. You can kind of work this with your deck, and I thought that was really cool. And then when I was thinking of some crazy strategies, I was thinking that maybe, like, I don't have it here as a synergy, but because I put Mr. Negative, and you're probably thinking, well, negative's 4, how do I get Longshot out if you can only be played on turn 3? But there's ways to cheat out this card, like Jubilee, like Lockjaw, right? Just cheat out Longshot. The effect will still trigger. And if you could discard your hand and draw from your deck after you've negatized your deck, that's all Mr. Negative needs to be absolutely broken. That'd be crazy. Not to mention you can make this a 1/3 possibly, which would be really good just for a little extra power. Like, holy smokes, it would be through the roof. Big Jubilee roll, but you know, that's a little bit inconsistent maybe, okay? So, and then with Morbius, +2 power every time you discard a card. If you're playing this on curve at 3, right? Your opening hand, you got 3 cards. You draw one on turn 1, you got 4. Then you draw one on 5, you got 5. And then you draw one on 3, you got 6 cards in your hand. You play Longshot, you got 5 cards. That's 10 power from Morbius. I guess you'd have to play him beforehand, so that's 8 power, okay? And maybe you draw some cards. Maybe there's like Nova Roma or some like location that draws you cards and you have even more. That'd be insane. And I don't think you really ever bummed by the discard. You're bringing stuff to the table that benefit from it, hopefully, right? So like APOC, Swarm, you know, like anything else in the future that benefits from being discarded, bam, this works with it. Even something like a Hella deck, if you didn't draw Hella, and you have this in hand, and then you have all those Infinauts and stuff, you can discard your hand and then probably reliably draw Hella, and you're set. You literally just pass until turn 6 and you play Hella. Like that's insane. You probably discarded Infinaut, Odin, all those crazy things, and you're set. Like, oh my gosh, this would be so crazy. So the condition of only being able to be played on turn 3 is reasonable, and you can actually work around it. You can cheat past it. But I thought this was a really cool idea to kind of innovate a little past just discarding your hand, because again, I did see a lot of those submissions, and that's very cool. It's a good idea, but it is kind of in the game, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know that in the data mines, but that is a thing. You know, Modok is coming. But A+ for the variants. So cool, the variant set and the card itself. Very well done, Hexagon. Thank you for submitting. Number 3, Zoan's Scientist Supreme. All right, Scientist Supreme. This one was pretty cool. So I like to make a deck, you know, for one at least every week of these. And I picked this guy because Scientist Supreme is a 3-cost, 3 power. Excellent art, by the way. Just looks great. The frame break and everything reminds me of Thanos. Very cool. When you discard a card, add a copy back to your hand and reduce its cost by 1. That's a crazy effect. It's ongoing as well, right? So you can maybe have some ongoing synergy somehow, maybe even like with the Spectrum or something. So with this deck, this Supreme deck, the Supreme Scientist, I was thinking with what you could do is you could discard your APOC repeatedly somehow, right? With like Hellcat, Swordmaster, Lady Sif, that kind of thing. Do the Lockjaw cycle and just get them discarded so that you get multiple copies of APOC back to your hand to guarantee the hit on Dracula, and maybe even just pass and let She-Hulk go out. And then if you get multiple She-Hulks, and then on top of that, if you get multiple She-Hulks, multiple copies, and they're discounted by 1, if you pass on 5, that's a free She-Hulk on turn 6. That'd be crazy. All you'd have to do is hit a few discards on her, and then you're set for turn 6. You play this, plus some other discard things, maybe Dracula, APOC, whatever. Oh my gosh, the power would be insane on turn 6. And meanwhile, all the rest of the turns, you're just doing like Lockjaw cycle, discarding things, pretty standard stuff. So this fits beautifully into those decks. You just got to get it out there and hope it doesn't get Enchantress or something. But even then, if you just get 1 or 2 other turns of the value out of this, like on turn 4 or 5, that's all you need. That's all you need. You just need a few copies and you're set. So I think it would be like Scientist Supreme on 3 and then Lady Sif on 4. Just herself, or even better yet, Wong and then Lady Sif would be nuts too. This one might be a little bit broken. That was the only reason holding me back from a higher ranking, because I don't know, like the reduction in cost is always so strong in Marvel Snap. And if you're running a discard deck, the condition of discarding a card is easily met. And it's giving you copies as well, which is another broken thing we often see. I'm sure there's some crazy combos that you guys can think of that I'm missing here, but I just thought She-Hulk, APOC, those were some pretty nutty combinations. Number 2, Arugula's Citizen V. Yo, look at this. Oh my goodness. My man inkified a variant. It's sick. Now, I know Arugula actually mentioned to another Berryverse because we're all like going like, whoa, what did you just do? It's just another comic book. It's from another piece of art. But still, it looks cool. It matches so well. I adore it. It's awesome. So anyways, Citizen V, which I keep wanting to say 5 because it's like the Roman numeral, but I'm pretty sure it's V, is a 1 cost 2 power. Cool. Very, very vanilla stat line. Very basic 1 cost, right? But on reveal, draw a card. If not played next turn, discard it. This is so cool. It's so simple, but it makes so much sense because if the card that I draw is like Wolverine, APOC, or Swarm, like some of the mentioned right there, then I can just discard them. You just don't play them. You play something else that turn. Maybe even discard them again, like somehow. Like play a discard card, it discards APOC, and then you let this just roll out and discard APOC again, giving even more power. Oh my gosh, I think it'd be sick. Maybe it's too good because the draw card is really, really good. You could run this not even in discard decks. Like just for the draw, I think a lot of decks would end up teching this in, and then you just hope whatever you draw you can play, so you avoid the discard. I think that's perfectly reasonable in a lot of decks. It's such a good card. There's a really similar one that's going to be coming out, at least currently as data mined. I believe it's called the Silver Samurai, and it's whenever that card gets discarded, you draw a card. So it's kind of similar. It's also a 1/2. But I find this a lot more interesting, a lot more ideas that can be put into this. Deck building doesn't have to be in a discard deck. I love it when we can take a keyword, but then mix it in with other deck archetypes, right? It doesn't have to just stick with its, constraint of being with other cards of that keyword. So I love this idea. It works in discard decks, clearly, because if I can choose to just let the card be discarded, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. It's crazy. Whereas if I just run it in like a zoo deck because I want to get cards, or you want to get Mr. Negative, right? You play it in a negative deck, even though the negative wouldn't be a good switch, but you just want that draw. That's what Mr. Negative decks really need at the end game. So you just need a lot of draw. Could be really good. So yeah, between the effect, it just stood out to me. I love it when a card is simple in design and effect, but it can have a big impact on the game. That is key. And then also this Inkified variant. My goodness me. It deserves number 2, but I had to give someone else the number 1. Let's get to number 1. Thank you, Arugula. Thank you. Number 1, Infernite's Cosmic Ghost Rider. Dude, this looks so good. Infernite put an infinity border, the new infinity border. He put it around this Cosmic Ghost Rider with already the current color palette of this card, the frame break, the text in like the 3D look. It looks so good. Maybe it's a little over the top, but doesn't even matter. I loved it. It stood out to me. It's super cool. And then the card itself is cool. I like it. Maybe broken. Don't know. Created a crazy combo here. So he's a 5 cost, 4 power. On reveal, return all discarded cards to your hand. Set their cost to 3. So what I thought of is, what if I had Lady Sif and I discarded, okay, so turn 3, Lady Sif, discard Dr. Doom. It's the only 6 cost card in my hand. Okay, boom, check. Number 1, good. Then I play Wong. Then I play Cosmic Ghost Rider, who's going to give me 2 of those Dr. Dooms back to my hand because he played at Wong location. And I get 2 of them that cost 3, like they look like right up here. And then I play both of them at that Wong location, filling that location up with 5, 10, 14, 16 power on its own right. But then I fill all the other locations with Doombots, 20 power. Minimum almost. So we have Lady Sif somewhere, so she's a 1-, so 19 and 20 power elsewhere. That's crazy. It's such a cool combination. It's kind of like you can already do like the Wong, Dr. Doom, Odin if you ramp into it. But this I thought was a really cool combo. I'm sure there's some crazy other ones. Thinking of just like any way you could target a discard with Lady Sif. I even thought Death, because if I can manage to destroy a couple cards early, like Yondu or something, Carnage, whatever, discount her by 3, so that when she's discarded and then returned from Cosmic Ghost Rider, she would cost 0, right? That would be pretty insane. Silver Surfer, I got a little question mark there because I was curious as to what you guys would think. If the cost is set to 3, is it now a 3 cost card that would benefit from Silver Surfer's buff? Or when the card is on the field, does it retain its original value and it only was 3 cost in your hand so that you could play it at that discounted cost, so it wouldn't actually retain the buff. I don't know. Which one would it work? I don't know. If it did work with Silver Surfer, that's fantastic synergy. That's awesome. But otherwise, I wasn't too sure, so I put a little bit of a question mark there. Let a little question for the comments below. You know what I'm saying? But man, look at this art. It looks like straight out of the game. It's so epic. And then just a cool effect. It's got kind of like a Ghost Rider effect. Ghost Rider currently just like returns 1 card from the discard pile into the location that he's played at. So this is a little bit similar, a little bit later game, but basically it's really just trying to set up that big turn 6. Maybe you could even cheat this out early if you really had something that you wanted to get back to your hand and play again. Maybe it gets awkward too. Like, I don't think it's all that broken. You get a lot of cards back, you reduce their cost. That's awesome. That's always awesome. But maybe the discards don't roll the way you want them to roll, right? We know this from Hella decks, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't know if the consistency would be there with this card to make it broken or warrant a nerf or a change. I think it's like actually pretty balanced the way it is. But you guys always know the crazy combinations. You guys are always on top of it and let me know. And I always go, wow, I didn't think of that in the comments. So please, if you see any combinations with any of these cards, let me know. It's cool to see how you envision these cards working in the game. This is just my takes, my top 5. There's so many good submissions. It's not even funny. It's crazy. It's crazy. You guys are so creative. So anyways, that was the discard challenge. Very cool. These big titles like discard, destroy, on reveal, ongoing, I'll eventually bring these back because they're keywords in the game. The destroy one, we're going to do destroy, and then I have a few different ones after that planned. So stay tuned. I look forward to seeing your destroy cards. Join the Berryverse. We got a great community growing, helping out with deck construction, just like, you know, conquering current locations, like featured and hot locations, like what cards everyone should tech into, and then a lot of custom cards and custom variants. It's super cool to see. Anyways, guys, that is going to do it for me. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.